Hey guys, it's Evan here, and today we're getting down with every episode of iCarly Season 1 reviewed! Well, here we are, another show that isn't Drake and Josh. I wonder if the show and the shows afterwards will still continue this relatively good views that I'm getting with this series. In which I won't lie, I'm not going to say I'm going to make it big with this, but the fact that before I started this series I had like 10 subscribers or so, and by the end of the Drake and Josh one I have like 23, it's quite impressive. Of course I plan to try to do streaming again and do gaming stuff too, since, I'm a gamer. But I ain't stopping anytime soon with this magnificent progress. Anyway, I will admit I'm going to have a lot of fun reviewing the show and onwards because, spoiler alert, the quality within these shows is not as, how should I put it, consistently good as the last show, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump right in. Episode 1, iPilot. Yes, all of these episodes have I in the beginning of it. There's a reason for it, but admittedly it's annoying to say I everything, I this, I that, whatever. Anyway, 13-year-old Carly Shay and her friends Sam Puckett and Freddie Benson make a web show based on strange talents from people. Alright, so how do I feel about this episode? Well, as a pilot of this show, yeah, I don't like it that much. Okay, let's do this. You would not believe your eyes. Oh boy, let's just do a scene-by-scene breakdown. In the beginning, Carly is called down to the principal's office because basically she took the blame for her friend Sam, who put papers all over the building that had their teacher, Mrs. Briggs' head placed onto the body of a rhinoceros. As a consequence, Carly has to film the auditions for the year's talent show. The scene's alright. I mean, the one joke where Principal Franklin thought it was a hippo and Carly explaining that it was a rhino was funny, I guess, but this scene does a good job for introducing our main protagonist here. So in the next scene, we meet Sam Puckett, who is a bad kid and kind of mean, and they decide to film the auditions together. Then right after, we meet Freddie Benson, who's a kid who has a insane crush over Carly and has an annoying voice, or at least until the end of the season, but I'll get to that later. Then we meet Carly's older brother and guardian, Spencer, in which they live in a loft, and a pretty good looking one at that. Anyway, Carly, Sam, and Freddie film the auditions with Freddie's videotaping equipment, which he just happened to have. They filmed the auditions in which most of them were duds, but there are some that were actually pretty creative, such as a girl who plays a trumpet on a pogo stick, but later they start talking trash about Mrs. Briggs, not knowing that they are recorded. Carly and Sam uploaded auditions on YouTube. I mean, Splash Face, come on. I mean, it sounds stupid, but I'll take something original over an idiotic parody, which, trust me guys, there's going to be a lot of terrible parodies, and next season takes the parodies and actually makes some stupid slang too, but one step at a time here. So Carly and Sam realize that their trash talking was uploaded too, and the next day Miss Briggs gets mad. Carly and Sam get mad that Miss Briggs wants to have their duds in the show and exclude the one with good talents. So Carly, Sam, and Freddie decide to have a web show after seeing the comments. Message boards. Ugh, screw you, 2007 of their vids. They named the show iCarly as the I stands for Internet. Clever, I guess. They have their first webcast that night with the kids and the strange talents, and afterwards they celebrate and blah blah blah. Alrighty, so that is the full episode. So in terms of plot, this episode actually does really well. The pacing is really good. The episode is not slow, but doesn't go too fast. I also appreciate how all the characters are introduced, and most of them seem likable. Emphasis on most of them. But unfortunately, I tried. And again, this is very unpopular, but I just don't like this episode. Yeah, it's a 5, 4, 3, 2 bad episode. As a pilot, it's not that bad, but on its own, there's so many things I just can't stand about it. For one, besides the minor laugh with the confusion of Hippo and the Rhino, the comedy overall is not terrible, but not that great. For one, you would think that Carly and Sam would make fun of Mrs. Briggs' strict nature or like anything else about her, but they make fun of her, and I quote from this episode, pointy boobs. Like, what? Honestly, from a kid's show, I don't know how Nickelodeon allowed point of view. It's just so idiotic. I don't know how else to put it. And the way that Carly and Sam go on and on about it just makes me cringe 110%. Secondly, Sam and Freddy are rivals, right? However, even though their rivalry is always unpleasant and gets worse and worse as we do this, their rivalry here is very irritating. In the future episodes, at least it comes down to just bickering. Granted that bickering comes to its own problems, but Sam keeps making comments on Freddy for no reason, always picking on him, but it's just not in a funny way. It just makes me want to slap Sam. And no, there's no sexism or misogyny in there. And Freddy just yells at her all the time, and it's just annoying. Then we have the acting in this episode. I know the yelling is from the script, but Nathan Kress sounds so forced when he disses Sam here. I have no idea why, but it just feels like everybody here is just too stiff, and nobody's nearly as natural or free-flowing as the actors of Drake and Josh. Oddly enough, I think Miranda Cosgrove did a much better job as Megan than she did here, or in this entire season, to be honest. I won't be too harsh on her because her acting chops do get better in the next season and onwards, but yeah, you can tell she needs some time to get used to a drastically new character. There are other things that kind of bother me, such as them literally having one black kid there, even though he just does rapping. The fact that, honestly, I don't even know why Freddy even recorded them talking smack about Mr. Graves to begin with. This pilot ain't got anything on Drake and Josh's pilot, and that's a meh episode. I don't love it, but at least I wasn't cringing in every single scene. But yes, this is a 5-4-3-2 bad episode. The comedy is stupid. The whole joke that kickstarts the second half of the episode is so dumb. Just makes no sense on how it will slip through the cracks. The acting is bad, and overall the episode is just not good. For me, anyway. Episode 2. I want more viewers. Carly and Sam go against Freddy and Spencer to bring in more viewers for iCarly. After the disastrous first episode, I will say that thankfully this episode is really good. I will admit that I expected a plot like this to inevitably be in a show like this, and it is a little bit weird that it's in the second episode, but even still, that's the worst I gotta say about this episode. I will admit that everything in this episode is so much better here than the last episode, and I promise I won't compare this too much to the last. Anyway, in terms of comedy, this episode is actually really good. In the middle of the episode, Carly and Sam go to this discount MTV place in the rain where there are a bunch of people around them. They have a post that says, "Go watch iCarly," or something like that. It's funny how the rain basically ruins the whole poster. I don't know why they just didn't read the weather report and or have the poster on something like cardboard, but whatever. Also, the scene where Spencer is seen on the monitor with a sign that says, please go online to iCarly.com, which then turns to Peon Carl, is hilarious. In terms of another thing that does bother me just a little bit, is that at some points Freddy comes off as a scumbag to Sam for literally no reason at all. For example, he says, "Thank you, Carly," in your face, Sam, which I mean, I kind of got a chuckle from it, but even still, that's just taken out of context. Thankfully, I can say it's just teasing and not nearly as abrasive as the last episode. And thankfully, in the future, for the most part, it's just mostly a rivalry and not an outright bullying situation. Okay, maybe not most of the time, just like half the time, but anyway. However, in this episode, it seems like Freddy takes a couple jabs at Sam for no reason, and yeah, that's all I have for the problems. And another thing I like about this episode is the ending. Instead of making it one side win or lose, they just make it both sides win at the end. Overall, it's a very enjoyable episode. Episode 3, I Dream of Dance. Carly, Sam, and Freddy dream of dancing. There's nothing more to it, really. It's just the trio hanging around Carly's loft. They watch a bunch of tapes of kids dancing. They end up going to sleep. And literally all three of them just dream of dancing. So how do I feel about this episode? It's actually pretty good. There's not much to really speak of it since most of the episode is just dance numbers and minor scenes throughout. I mean, to give the episode some credit, the dance choreography is actually really good. So the first dream is one that they all share where they enter the school tired from watching the tapes. Sam's dream is her dancing with Mrs. Briggs and some Scottish dancers. Freddy's dream has his one blonde kid go up against him while trying to get Carly's love or something like that. At the end, they literally just parody beat it, both the music and dancing itself. Carly's dream has the same cute boy dancing with her and some guys while she's in some random dress. And at the end, Spencer literally has the same dream, but he's in the dress that Carly. Admittedly, I kind of wish there was a little bit more to it, but to be fair, the episode is paced pretty decently, so it's not a huge deal. When I was younger, by that I mean months ago when I wrote the script, I was annoyed by the fact that they parodied the music video of Beat It, but not gonna lie, it actually is pretty funny and probably my favorite part of the entire episode. Am I biased because I'm an NJ fan? Maybe, but I genuinely got a kick out of it. Also, Spencer's dream really got a good laugh out of me, even though we just basically see him just somewhat in drag. Also, at the end of Sam's dream, Gibby literally just runs into the place and says, "What did I miss?" And Sam says, "Get out of here, this is my nightmare." And yeah, that's the first time we ever seen Gibby. So, yeah, that's worth something. The comedy other than that is standard stuff. Not an unfunny episode, but there was a focus on the dancing more so than anything else, so that's not a problem. I also think what sells these dance sequences is actually the really good choreography. Most of these sequences look like they're designed for a Broadway show or even a music video. Is the episode perfect? No. For one, this is the first episode that starts that dumb slang in which Carly, Sam, and Freddy call this discount Jake Paul a nub. A nub? Really? Look, writers, making this stuff up on the top of your head is not going to get stuck with kids, besides having them laugh at you how dumb it sounds. So don't do it. Oh, you keep doing it? Wow, thanks a lot. Another thing I will admit, I'm disappointed by the fact that we never, in this episode and the entire show, ever got a chance to see Spencer's firecracker move. But other than that, this is a cool episode. Episode 4. I like Jake. Carly likes a guy named Jake, but she finds out he's a really bad singer. Okay, so how was this episode? Okay, so let's just start with the positives. Firstly, I do find it really funny how the show treats autotune by the end of it. It's a very clever idea, and I do like how it's executed. I like the one joke where the teacher passes as the girls are geeking out and then change the topic to having more homework, but other than that, there's nothing else in this episode that I like. For one, I have to call bull on the fact that Dan literally just pulled an actor out of his hat as he just used Austin Butler, who was literally on Zoe 101 Season 4 at the time. To be fair, he was literally everywhere in the mid-2000s, from Ned's Classified to Wizards to Waverly Place, just other kids shows, but what makes me really irritated is that this guy has been used 3 times beforehand. He was an extra on The Demonator, he played the one-off Danny from Season 3 of Zoe 101, and then plays James from Season 4, which is just the main character, and then we have him back here. Like, I can just smell the beautiful smell of a budget cut. But it's still not something to boast about. Next is the... Okay, I might as well just get this out of the way. This is a Batty McFatty episode. Alright, so another reason why I can't stand this episode is the reason Austin Butler, Jake, in this episode is here, is to be the love interest of Carly. Okay, first of all, apparently this guy has been with a girlfriend since 3rd grade, and they're supposed to be 8th grade at this point, I believe. Only a young-minded kid had a girl for 5 years. Okay, writers. Anyway, Carly starts hitting on this guy, and so do all the girls in the grade. Besides the jokes that I mentioned earlier, the comedy is just so bland. It's not terrible, and there are some other jokes that get a decent chuckle out of me, like Jake looking at the statue and think of it as Spencer if he had a head or not, but it's very lacking in the comedy department, and the ending is what gets me the most. So Jake gets the auto-tune and performs his song over iCarly, and as it gets on, Freddy gets a kiss from Carly, as he asked for one before the webcast if the auto-tune worked correctly. However, Carly doesn't kiss him on the cheek, or lips, or the forehead, whatever. She kisses his nose, like, it's why? And the way she goes on with it, the way she just gives me that nose, is just so cringy. I mean, the joke may be that Carly will give the most meaningless of kisses to Freddy, but it's just not very clear. Freddy even suggested it, so is there something that I'm missing? Then at the end, Jake goes back with his girl Steph and believes that Carly and Freddy are a couple now after he saw her kiss his nose. Mind you, he was looking at the camera as he was singing, so did he just hear what Carly said and assume it happened? I'm confused. Then Carly tries to defend it, and overall the ending just proves that everything was kind of pointless. Overall, this episode is just a big mess. I can't wrap my head around the terrible plot, the laziness in the casting, the overall cringe factor, and just really lackluster comedy. Episode 5. I Want to Stay with Spencer. Carly is moving to Yakima with her grandpa, and she ain't down for that. Alright, so this episode is quite interesting. Okay, so before anything, let's just get the cat out of the bag. This episode is kind of remembered for this tummy rub thing, where they just lift their shirts and rub their stomachs or whatever. Where do I stand? I'm just mixed about it. On one hand, it's great for people who have a navel fetish. I mean, it doesn't trigger me by anything, but it's just so pointless, and honestly, I feel like it's just there to give this episode some identity, because while I do think that is a good episode, it's not that far from meh. I will admit that I do like the ending, as it is pretty sweet, as it shows Spencer just going from the comical screw-up to an actual responsible adult who cares about his sister. It also has nice foreshadowing in the beginning, and I will admit that the episode is paced pretty nicely. The entire episode isn't really Carly packing everything, more so her trying to convince her granddad to stay in Yakima, which is what I expected, but even still, there's a fair share of both schemes and goodbyes, which I can understand and appreciate. On the downside, however, besides the pointlessness of the belly rub, or whatever it's called really, this episode overall is pretty forgettable stuff. I mean, in terms of comedy, I think this one is alright. When Spencer accidentally lets the broom on fire, it's pretty funny. I like the Yakimaniac joke from Freddy, and Sam's response to it is even funnier. But other than that, But besides some good jokes, there's nothing else that I can just call back to from this episode. Lastly, this is the 5th episode, so yes, we all knew at the end Carly was going to stay with Spencer by the end. So, yes, the episode is a little bit predictable. I guess it's a case of the journey matters more than the destination, but still, it's not like the show was going to end in 5 episodes. No, where they're going to just boot Jerry Trainer off like that. But anyway, this episode is a pretty good episode. Episode 6, I, Neville. The iCarly crew have some website competition with a little kid named Neville and his site, Nevelocity. To be honest, this episode is on the same level as the last one. It's good, but not great or even that far from meh. In terms of jokes, I like the ending where Neville gets caught by his mother and Sam and Freddy still pick on him. But, yeah, that's really all I got. The comedy is alright, but nothing really memorable. The episode isn't amazing or anything, and again, it was very close to being meh, but hey, it's still enjoyable to watch. Episode 7, I Scream on Halloween, or I Scream, You Scream, We All Scream on Halloween. Okay, sorry. Anyway, the iCarly crew celebrate Halloween with a web show in a haunted, quote-unquote, apartment room. This episode is the first Halloween special Dan shows, and yeah, it's It's not like this episode is boring or anything. It's literally split down the middle. I really, really enjoy Spencer's subplot. I really, really don't care for the main plot. As for the subplot with Spencer, it's really funny to see Spencer just get pushed around by kids. Don't read too deep into that. Anyway, the Spencer subplot is really good, and to be honest, even though it's a subplot, it does have a fair share of its time in the episode. The main plot is, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but honestly, it's just really boring and such a generic, like a generic Halloween special. In terms of comedy, this episode is actually pretty good. From Sam SMHing her head as she sees Freddy's costume, from Spencer basically giving the kids literally anything besides candy, to Looper confusing Halloween and Hanukkah, the episode is admittedly saved a little bit from comedy. To be fair, this episode was not far from being good, but there were little cracks in there that bring it to an okay episode. That bring it to being an okay episode. Episode 8, I Spy a Mean Teacher. Carly and Freddy spy on a mean teacher. But seriously, the two and later Sam invade Mrs. Briggs' home to see how life for a teacher is outside of their workplace. So how was the 8th episode of the series? Oh yeah, it's not that good. It's great. I think what really sells this episode is the plot. In fact, to give iCarly credit so far, the overall plots for the most part are paced pretty nicely and are written with good intentions. Now with this episode, the first half is the trio invading Mrs. Briggs' house, and the second half is her literally performing a song on her bagpipes live on iCarly. Meanwhile, there's a subplot with Spencer that's very short. In fact, it's kind of forgotten about in the second half, in which he has Sam accompany him in a lot because he's lonely and makes a sculpture, quote unquote, of her. It's standard stuff. I really find it funny, but also kind of surreal seeing Mrs. Briggs have such a big crush on Randy Jackson. No, not that one. The one from American Idol. Granted, this is the closest thing we got to an interracial couple in the show, but even still, it's kind of funny. I also really like the joke where Freddy says tight dog and then says it correctly in the later episode. God. I also love the joke where Freddy says tight dog and then says it correctly and later in the episode, tight dog. In fact, the comedy is actually really good in this episode. Well, in the first half, I think it's really good. The second half, I can kind of see what jokes they were going with for a green screen in the background, but honestly, some of the film display was a little too much. Like, literally having a camera go up to some guy's mouth while eating corn. Yes, I see the comedy with having someone completely unaware with what's behind her, but they could have just chilled with it just a little bit. And overall, I have nothing much to complain about. This episode is a joy from start to finish. Episode 9, I Will Date Freddy. Freddy starts dating a girl named Valerie, and now his time with iCarly starts decreasing. God, I hate this episode. Yeah, I'm cutting right to the chase with this one. This is a 5, 4, 3, 2 bad episode. This episode just annoys the heck out of me. For one, this episode is just not funny at all. The only joke that I remotely found funny is Spencer yelling at some girls over the phone over some Girl Scout cookies. And also, mainly, I got a good laugh at the end where the monitor literally falls on top of Valerie during her web show. I also liked Freddy's response to it. On a minor note, this one annoying kid who sneezes all the time, Jeremy, or nicknamed Jeremy, just keeps going on and on by the end of the episode, and I will admit that I get what they were going for. Even Carly and Sam are irritated with this guy's obnoxious sneezing, but I just don't find anything funny with it. Just freaking annoying. However, there are two big problems with this episode that truly brings this episode down a couple notches. The story is really bad in 3 letters. S-A-M. Alright, so firstly, the story itself is so minimalistic. It's just not even funny. I mean, the episode starts fine, I guess, in a plot perspective. Freddy gets to meet his Valerie chick and goes on a date with her. But what kills it is just how kind of awkward, but not in a good way, the date is. The most appealing thing out of all of this is just Spencer, to be honest. However, the second half is just so irritating. Not only is the sneezing camera stuff with Jeremy really cringy, but literally out of nowhere, Valerie tries to convince Sam to go host her web show alongside Freddy, and apparently she did the same to Carly, and what irritates me the most is that there's just no real point. If she was using Freddy the entire time, why does she want Carly and or Sam to go to her side? What's the point? However, the story isn't the worst in the world, and to be honest, this episode would be a light 5-4-3-2 bad episode if it was just the story. However, unfortunately, it's downright terrible because Sam is here. For one, she never shuts up. In the beginning, when Freddy and Valerie meet, Sam keeps insulting Freddy and calling Valerie delusional for liking him, and that by itself isn't that bad, but she goes on and on and on. By the end, I'm just like, shut up. Then throughout the episode, it seems like she doesn't care or really doesn't understand Freddy and Valerie going out, and it's just annoying. And at the end, when Freddy goes back to iCarly, they hug, but she gives him a wedgie, which is not necessary and, again, not funny at all. However, this is where the sloppy story comes in. Freddy leaves iCarly because he simply doesn't have the time for it anymore while helping his girlfriend's web show. However, in the end, they make it seem like he left because he wasn't treated with respect. What? Did they just forget why he left? But back to Sam, she's just incredibly obnoxious in the episode, and this is one of her worst appearances in the entire season. Heck, maybe in the entire show. Okay, judging by the last 2 seasons, maybe not the entire show, but overall, this is a terrible episode. It just gives me a headache every time I watch it. Episode 10, I Want a World Record. The iCarly crew try to break a world record by having a webcast for 24 hours. Literally, just like Ice Cream and Halloween, I like the Spencer subplot and I don't care for the main plot. Why? Because since they're in the same location for most of the episode, it's just kinda boring. I mean, the iCarly webcast skits aren't the funniest comedy in the world, so seeing it for the extended time is just a little bit boring. Not to mention, it's off-putting that basically at the end it was all useless. Meanwhile, Spencer's subplot is actually pretty funny. Not to mention, it is satisfying to see Spencer accomplish his goal at the end. Though to be honest, the subplot isn't that compelling and doesn't take too much space in the episode. I don't have much to say about this episode. It's just meh. It could have been better, but it might have been worse. Episode 11, I Rue the Day. Neville is back at it again and wants to ruin iCarly forever after Carly refuses to kiss him. Meanwhile, the Plain White Tees guest star as Spencer saves them from a tragedy or something, I don't remember, and he gets his autograph. I'll be honest, just like the previous Neville episode, this episode is good, but it's not that good. In terms of things I liked the performance at the end of the episode. I'm actually kind of surprised it didn't do Hey There Delilah, but whatever. And I like how Carly's dad is kind of incorporated into the plot, or at least his friend in the military is. And I will admit the episode is decently funny, with Neville pretending to be Carly and to the fact that Spencer got his autograph on his back. But overall, it's just standard stuff. It's kind of forgettable and lacks identity, to be honest. Episode 12, I Promise Not to Tell. Carly and Freddy have a hard time getting over the fact that Sam goes into the school computer and changes their grades. Before you say anything, no, Sam's not that smart that she can hack into a computer. She just happened to be in the principal's office while the computer was open. It's hard to explain, but you have to watch the episode for yourself. Anyway, this episode is actually really good. In fact, I get some Josh is Done vibes from this episode, which is a really good thing because it's my favorite episode from season 4. Heck, it's probably my top 5 in Jake and Josh as a whole. I mean, I kind of debate on which one is the better, Josh is Done or the Dr. Phyllis show, but you get my point. Mind you, I don't think this episode is as good as Josh is Done, and I'll get to my problems later, but it's still a competently made episode. In terms of jokes, to be honest, the episode is pretty good, but it's pretty clear that they focused on the story than anything else. The episode's not that funny, but there are some good jokes in there. Even though it's a bit depressing, it's kind of funny to see that one girl be like, "Congratulations, Carly," when she used to be top dog in the class. Also, the one teacher teaching really fast and then saying, "No, I will not slow down," is pretty funny, along with that British accent. Anyway, there are some stupid lines here. They're like when Sam mentions the tater tots and on the menu, and Freddy says, "We don't care about taters," and Carly's like, "Even in top form." The one line where Carly says, "I want to punch 3 holes in him," is really cringy. Also, the part where Carly and Freddy cry over possibly going to juvie is, again, pretty cringy. If you're gonna notice something, this season is very, very cringy at times, but I'll get to that at the end. In terms of other things that I like, and this is just a personal thing for me anyway, but there's some satisfying ASMR in this episode. Many parts of the episode has some typing, and it's relatively long too, so I'm kind of a sucker for typing. Heck, there's literally a scene where Carly and Freddy are in the computer lab, so ASMR, here I come. So not only is this a pleasure to watch as an actual TV episode, but it's also kind of relaxing. In terms of things I don't like, I do think it's more stupid and funny that the teacher didn't like Carly's paper because it had 3-hole paper, or 3-hole line paper. It will be more clever or more funny if there was a grammar mistake or a spelling mistake, and that's just made it worse, but no, it's just a trivial matter, because comedy. Also, this is just a lack of common sense, but Japanese is much different from English, so why did the writers just assume that Carly could just read it and see that lamp is rampu? Ooh, voice crack. Other than that, there's not much bad about this episode.